Looking to my left, and it looks like the USA just scored a goal in extra time, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It's day 3 of 4 practices in a row, sweltering at the NovaCare Complex. We've got all the notes you need to know coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Tuesday, 2 o'clock. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman. Man, it was a hot one today at Eagles camp. Zach, focus on the running game. We're going to get to all that. We're going to run through our rubric again. We've got lots to talk about. No change at right guard, much to the chagrin of one particular YouTube commenter who can jump off a bridge as far as I'm concerned. Zach, how are you?
I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. I'm doing great now.
A short bridge. Okay. He survives, but his phone is all of a sudden doesn't work.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thrilled to be in air conditioning right now. It was a hot one. Anecdotally, those who watched the Anthony Gargano show today, I was the guest. We do the training camp segment every day. 10 o'clock, I'm on. Anthony, intelligently so, wants the field in the background, right? Like, so we do it on our phone from the practice field. And so it's like doing a FaceTime call. In the middle of it, I was giving an answer, which actually I didn't get to finish. JP asks me about the book that Saquon Barkley was reading, and I'm giving this answer, and then all of a sudden, my phone just goes blank, and the image that I get on the screen is we've all seen this, but I'm going to show you. Temperature. iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it. So it was so hot outside that I couldn't finish my interview. I went back on with Anthony, but we didn't pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I think that's for the best. Enough of the book talk.
You anti-book?
No, it just, come on.
Are you fearless?
No.
Okay.
Are you?
No, actually, Chris Long gave a great graduation speech in 2018 at the University of Virginia where he spoke about the importance of fear. And actually, that speech really resonated with me. So I understand the sentiment. And by the way, what we're talking about is Saquon Barkley asked Jalen Hurts if he's fearless, and he's been asking different players this.
He doesn't seem as fearless to me, Saquon Barkley himself.
Well, no, he said he is fearless.
I don't believe him.
Okay, well, all I can do is ask him, and he answered. I actually think fear can be a great motivator. Fear can be a great driver. Fear can be.
I agree with that.
I would recommend everyone check out Chris Long's speech from 2018 at the University of Virginia.
Okay. Let's get into it, Zach. Let's run through it. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Now, today was a little bit more of a focus on the running game. They did some 4-minute stuff, but Jalen Hurts, obviously, still out there. Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee both spoke after practice. Tell me what your takeaways were on Jalen Hurts today.
Honestly, I thought Jalen was fine. I didn't think he was.
He wasn't asked to do much
Exactly. There weren't as many passing plays, like you said. I thought there were a few good runs in there. He is moving well. I thought there was a real good pass in. Now, like it seems like an obvious pass, but it was in a quick hurry up drill to AJ Brown, the slant across the middle there, like perfect placement.
Easy money always.
Exactly, the type of play that you're right, easy money. That if you need 6 yards in a gotta have it situation, boom, throw that slant to AJ. But you can tell obviously because that's timing, that's rhythm. So that jumped out to me. But overall, yeah, I mean, I did the clip that we have on social, on Instagram, Twitter, and whatnot, on TikTok, and it's camp in 60 seconds, right? And typically, when I've done it, I've talked about Jalen Hurts. I didn't talk about Jalen today because Jalen wasn't really in my notes much today.
You asked Kellen Moore about the lack of interceptions from Jalen Hurts this summer. I know it's been something that you've been focused on. Do you think that is unequivocally a good thing for Jalen Hurts, or are you concerned at all that he's not pushing the needle a little bit?
Yeah, so Kellen Moore said that he thinks Jalen's still being aggressive. And I am seeing that there are passes downfield, right? So he's putting the ball in tight windows. Jamie has his two beautiful daughters here today, so nice to see them, and his wife Addie as well. Good to see her. That's who Bo was waving to, and that's who Joy is waving to as well.
For all the audio listeners.
Yeah, so I think that is accurate to an extent. I don't know if he's being as aggressive as maybe he was in some previous camps. There are a number of, I don't want to say dump offs, but easy passes to the backs. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think high percentage plays, like take it if you can get it, as Jalen will tell you. You can't go broke making a profit, right? So, yeah. Now the caveat here is he's not facing heavy scheme type stuff, right? Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I don't know that that's true.
Okay.
I think they throw interesting things at him.
Okay.
On the defensive side, yeah.
On the back end?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, well,
I don't think it's super vanilla, and there's lots of different pressure looks as well.
There's different pressure looks, but I'm saying like in those first few games in particular last year, he was talking about unscouted looks, and he was seeing a lot of unscouted looks, and I think he's seeing things here. Maybe it's the nature of practice that he's more familiar with.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. Okay, how about Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee? They both also spoke after practice today. Anything on their news front?
Did it? You need to be restrained from Pickett at all?
No.
Okay. You are not a Pickett fencer. You are you're clearly in Club Tanner.
Okay.
Okay. So
you think I would have tried to stab him? I don't.
Were you not the one who when Devontae Parker, you said I was Devontae Parker's like I forget the expressions that you used here. So when I turned that on to you and you,
well, I never accused you of wanting to kill the man.
I didn't accuse you of wanting to kill.
Had to be restrained. Either. What am I going to do? Bite
him? So yeah, I thought Pickett was fine today.
I mean, I'm calling it like I see it. I said he had a very good day of practice yesterday.
Yeah,
and Tanner McKee threw an interception today. But on the whole, I do think that Tanner McKee has looked better than Kenny Pickett. Now, there's a little bit more carryover in the offense for McKee than there is for Pickett. It's a new place. It's a new surrounding. But yeah, he has not looked awesome.
Well, so one thing from today's practice is heavy situational, yes, but a lot of the situational type stuff was hurry up, end of clock, end of game situations, and certain plays where like you're using design quarterback runs, right? Mm-hmm. And Kenny Pickett does move well. That's one thing between the two. It's not saying much. McKee's
no doubt
not,
about it.
But
yes.
Pickett, and I actually think Pickett's at his best when he's on the move. And we've seen him in college with the Steelers create plays, extend plays, and he's a natural runner. And so I think that today showcased some of what Pickett does well. I'm curious in the game because I do think he can improvise well. But McKee, I'm with you. McKee's been just really decisive. Like gets rid of the ball quickly, operates within the offense. There's things to like about him.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our rundown of the.
By the way, I see Provolone Jones says I'm okay with keeping 3 QBs on the roster. To me, like the default's keeping 3 QBs on the roster. I'm not operating under the presumption that they were ever going to cut McKee, and I thought like
not
last
a chance.
Year, but last year you and I had the conversation about whether they would keep 2 or 3. But it behooves you to keep a third. Number one,
right,
based on like roster mechanics.
Right.
And the other part of it too is Tanner McKee, who if we discussed this last summer, if he showed any type of promise, they would keep him because he was drafted as a developmental quarterback. It would be ill-advised for them to not keep Tanner. I mean, I suppose the only way they would keep 2 is if there's a quarterback injury elsewhere. They traded Pickett. You're not keeping Will Greer, right? Then you do what you did with Nate Sudfeld, where you have a guy on the practice squad, right?
Yes,
but with these 3,
who was the guy from whom Reed Sinnett?
Yes, exactly.
You claim somebody elsewhere, yeah,
exactly. So with these 3,
Tanner McKee is more guaranteed to be on the Eagles Week 1 roster than Kenny Pickett is.
Yes, exactly. So I felt comfortable asking Tanner McKee about his background in Brazil today because I'm expecting him to be on the roster for the Brazil game.
Yes. Very. I mean, you can talk about it if you want. He spent 2 years as a missionary in Brazil, and I tell you what, just the little bit of the Portuguese he was willing to say, fantastic.
Yeah. So I have some alerts as you well know, and there were some articles over the summer about McKee going to Brazil. And
you must have more than some alerts for Tanner McKee Brazil articles to be reaching your
Eagles,
alerts. Yeah.
Eagles.
So
right?
what do you have, like 80?
No, I get nightly. I mean, I'll say if Howie Roseman or Nick Sirianni hacked my phone, and like they saw the nightly email alert with their name on it, they'd probably be like, Zach, you've gone from like nice guy, diligent reporter to this is a little much, man, right? Although when Nick was hired, I did talk about how he met his wife, so that probably
his antenna was already up.
Exactly. And Howie's never done a speaking engagement in the tri-state area where I haven't showed up at. So
I think they would not be surprised. They're well aware.
But
they already know.
So we can get to Tanner McKee a little bit later in like the press conference, and I'll get. But anyways, I'm expecting him to be on the roster in Brazil.
Okay, let's talk about the action at practice today. Give me the first team player who did something that you would like to talk about.
Saquon Barkley, and I imagine that might be the case for both of us. But Saquon Barkley was in the thumbnail today for a reason. Heavy running day. So there's two things to isolate with Saquon Barkley. First off, from a running perspective, now, we always talk in training camp, you can only see so much from the backs, right? They whistle the plays dead. There's no hitting. But what you can ascertain is explosiveness, cutting ability, things like that. So he took a handoff from the left side, and I don't know if it was a jump cut or he took it from the right, and he cut to the left. But he was quick to the cut and explosive out of the cut. And that's what you want to see from Barkley because you want him to get that head of steam. The other part, and I'll defer to you on this too because we were actually watching it from different spots. I was during one-on-ones, O-line, D-line.
2-on-2s. I would never miss a one-on-one.
Sorry. Yes, 2-on-2s. Actually, it was 3-on-3.
It's a combined rush. They're working on passing off games and stuff, which is a good drill, but it's not as germane. And, I don't need to watch every
Gotcha. Okay, well, then novices.
Lord knows I would not miss that.
Then novices were watching it. Okay, and then on the field right next to it was running backs against like backers, linebackers, which
one of my favorite drills.
You don't see that very often. And Saquon
as blitzers, not in coverage.
Yes, exactly. And credit to Jimmy Kemsky from Philly Voice. I was watching it with him. He's like, Saquon's so much better than all the other guys. And so I turned and I watched, and there was, in particular, this rep against Devin White.
He and Devin White went against each other like 5 times during this period.
So, I'll defer to you on this.
It's good on good. Devin White is their best blitzer, and Saquon looked awesome. I mean, it is no comparison to the rest of the guys, and we can get to everything else that happened. But, I think Saquon won like 4 of the 5 reps and then had one other good one against somebody else. Looked awesome. And I think from a big picture standpoint, this is interesting because you think about the other running backs they have and Will Shipley and Kenny Gainwell. And first of all, Will Shipley, for all that he has done as a receiver this camp, was lost in pass blocking. And not even, I don't even mean lost and didn't know what to do, but like he was getting moved around easily. Like we joked about the Kenny Pickett pancaking him yesterday. Like he is unplayable in pass protection just based on that one drill right now. And so you think about what those guys bring to the table, Gainwell and Shipley, in theory, third down back types.
Yeah.
That's what Saquon's so good at.
Exactly.
Right? So why would that be the situation when you're taking Saquon off the field when he's by far their best pass protector and by far their best pass receiver? It's like the larger picture of when are those guys going to get on the field? When are you going to spell Saquon? I don't know that they have a guy who does the things that Saquon doesn't do.
What doesn't Saquon do? I think part of the appeal of Saquon is that he does everything. That's why they're paying him $13 million. But we've both said this, frankly, since they signed him, and certainly coming off the owners' meetings when we had the first chance to talk to the coaching staff in the front office about Saquon, which is the Eagles are going to use him all the time. Like he's not going to come off the field very often. He's going to get a lot of touches. I think the Eagles internally view this as like a 2-year deal and run the brakes off him, for lack of a better term, in those 2 years. Like he's here to be like the featured running back, a 275 to 300 touch player. And in today's practice, you saw the pass blocking, you saw the catching. He had, I think, 2 catches that I had in my notes, and then you also saw the running, like I mentioned. This was what you're expecting from Saquon, to do everything running back.
Yeah, this was my favorite drill of practice, and Saquon. I mean, he really was awesome at it. Now, I will say that I don't know that I have been like blown away by Saquon's explosiveness over the course of camp. There have been a couple of really nice plays. There was one today. There was one yesterday, which was really nice, where Jalen Hurts fakes the read or has a read on it, hands it off to Saquon, who comes around the left side. There's a guard pulling around, and it popped for a big play. And that was the first time where I was like, oh wow, he is moving at a different speed. But like the pass protection stuff, like that was big boy stuff. And he and Devin White were sort of going after each other in a competitive, nice way. And Devin White was giving him daps because White got him once, but it was like he sort of threw everything he had at him, and Saquon held up very well. Well
said. And physically too. Look, we've all heard like the line about Saquon's thighs and quads, like things like that. But he is he's just built physically different than the other running backs. I think back, I covered the New York Giants, and did I talk about this on the show? Brandon Jacobs. He's just like so imposing.
Right.
And Saquon Barkley, you see him with Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley. Not a knock on either of those guys, but Saquon's just built differently.
Just a couple other notes from that session, and one of these guys would have been my second team player to talk about. But aside from Shipley, who was disappointing, man, Nakobe Dean did not have a good session, and usually that is something that you would think he could do is coming forward a little bit, and he was not looking.
He wasn't
good.
Disengaging, or he wasn't getting.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't moving guys back, and he wasn't getting around them. He was pretty well handled. Sort of the same for Ben Van Sumeren, not showing a ton of pop. Trotter did a pretty good job. Kenny Gainwell did a pretty good job, and then even Lou Nichols and Kendall Milton held their own a little bit. So just some things to pay attention to.
Any chance, because we're all looking for Easter eggs, when you keep doing these Lou Nichols mentions, that he's on the list? Like, not saying that he's the crush, but
he's on the list.
Okay, he's on the list. He's a possibility.
Zach, I am on the fence.
Okay.
About whether to announce the camp
you
crush
gotta
today.
Tease that. Yeah, we gotta put that on the promotion. Like we're trying to get Mr. Beast numbers here, right? So you tell me.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. You don't want Mr. Beast numbers?
If you want Mr. Beast numbers, you got to show more skin.
I don't know. You got to tell about your crush. That's how we get it.
I am like maybe ready to call it.
Wow.
An actual gasp.
Okay.
Julia.
How about this? There's no practice on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Can we make it's before the first preseason game?
Yeah.
Can we need to give people a reason to tune in other than like preseason preview? Can we say that is the day that the crush is unveiled?
Sure.
Or I should say revealed. Wow. So there you go. Thursday, August 8th, 2 p.m. Find out the Bo Wulf camp crush. You can only see it here.
I mean, there is no
yes.
other place that you will find the identity of the
aggregators are gonna. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna say.
Well, I mean, you could ask EJ.
No, there's gonna. What's the aggregator like? Dove Climate or whatever. Yeah. So after a weekend off after the show, and then it's gonna say.
Yeah, we'll see if anything changes over the next 48 hours. Okay. But I feel sort of committed.
Wow. Was this what it felt like when you decided to propose to Rachel? Like, all right, you made that decision.
No, I'm much more nervous about this.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, you weren't nervous?
No, that's not true. I was very nervous.
Me too. My brothers were. My brothers were like, "Why are you so nervous? Do you think she's gonna say no?" And I was like, "I just wanted to go perfectly."
Yeah, I was very nervous.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's a good sign, right? It means it matters to you.
Yeah. Fear is a good thing.
I just asked Chris Long, the 2018 graduation speech at the University of Virginia.
There you go. All right, before we get to the rest of the players we want to talk about from today's practice, let's talk about our new friends at Bet365. As I pull this up, Bet365, 2 words: never ordinary, just like your boy, Zach Berman. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, and more. Bet365 pioneered live in-game betting, and today Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary because we believe every sport should be epic, and right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and claim your offer. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. They've also got a bunch of great boosts, which, I mean, that's not ordinary, you know? Over 10,000 boosts every month at Bet365. They boost specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, so keep an eye out for the custom PHLY bets and boosts. The same-game parlays allow you to combine the most popular markets from selected events across different sports into one big price parlay. All that good stuff to help you have a little extra hooch in the game. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, and check out our boosts to see why it's never ordinary at Bet365.
We all get to a certain age where, you know, there's little things around the house that need to be fixed, and you have nowhere to turn. It's your responsibility, right?
Oh, we got like 3 screws right now that are loose that I gotta put back into things.
Well, Ace Hardware Home Services is the place to turn. Got a leaky pipe? At Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person that do the fixing if you need that. If you have an air conditioning issue, you got a person for that too. If there's a faucet that you say you'd fixed last fall, but then you were watching our show and you got distracted, and then it's still not working right. It's still not working right. They got a person for that too, because they're not just the helpful hardware folks at Ace Hardware. They're the helpful home service and repair folks as well. For plumbing to heating and cooling, we've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services. We're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
You been watching Olympic stuff, Zach?
I got to admit, no. No, I mean basketball,
it's
yes.
Disappointing. Basketball's the only thing you're watching?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Olympics guy. No, I mean, I'm not a huge Olympics guy. If it was at a time when training camp wasn't going on, I might consume more of it. Typically, when Emily goes to sleep, I am transcribing stuff from the day.
So sexy.
So yeah, but that's not. But look, that's an excuse. I do typically have baseball on in the background.
Interesting.
I keep abreast on the headlines. Like I know what's.
Did you watch the 100?
No. I saw. That's the one where I saw the photo finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Jerry Seinfeld line between. Yeah. It must have been an extraordinary race.
Unbelievable.
I did not watch it. I'm sorry. I'm not an Olympics person. I do love the World Cup, but
interesting.
Yeah, I can't really get into the Olympics.
Why do you think? Why is that?
Why I can't get into the Olympics?
Yeah.
I'm just not invested in the sports. So that's I love competition, like patriotism, right? But I'm just not. Yeah.
I like competition much more than patriotism.
part of the appeal to sports for me is like the context, and I just don't.
But what easier context is there than who is the fastest person in the world? Like that is so cool. Every sport is like, you know, there maybe Messi is the greatest soccer player who's ever lived, but maybe not everybody got to play soccer. Sure. Everybody in the world, able-bodied, can run, and this person is the fastest person of every person in the world. That's so cool.
I'm not disputing it. I like if it's on, I won't change the channel. I just don't actively seek it out. The other thing too, and maybe the 2026 the 2028 Olympics in LA, which by the way, Jalen Hurts.
Why by the way?
flag football is being introduced to that one. So the NFL.
But he has like no connection to LA or.
No, I think he's one of the faces of the NFL. Yeah. But so he was carrying the torch football type thing at the Coliseum. But anyways, I bring this up because I get a lot of alerts on my phone, and when the stuff's on prime. Well,
Tanner McKee gave a Portuguese interview.
When we get I typically know the result before it's been broadcasted. So I think in 2028 when it's broadcasted live, I might be more into it because I don't like watching something where I know what happened.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. By the way, no one in the chat should misconstrue the patriotism thing. I just mean like I like rooting for the country. I like U.S. soccer.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
I like U.S. soccer too.
Yeah.
We this morning put on the climbing event, like the speed climbing wall thing was insane. These guys get up the thing in like 5 seconds, like Spider-Man.
What's the sport? It's like a rock climbing.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before.
The Olympics.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before. It was insane.
I was
wild.
And shout out to our PHLY Sixers group because I saw them talk about this. Is 3-on-3? Is that new in the Olympics?
This is the second.
Okay,
Olympics,
why is there a like?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But also, why is the American men's team like awful?
Yeah,
they've got all these old. They got all these old guys.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Weird. All right. Who was your second team player to talk about from today, Zach?
Well, I hope I'm not picking. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here. But Moro Ojomo.
You are, but that's okay. That's good.
It means we're both watching the same bracket. Yeah.
And by the way, Moro Ojomo, a holdover member of the core four of the Bo Wulf Camp Crushers from last year.
Well, I mean, first off, when you pick 4 of 90, your odds of hitting are much better.
Yeah, but if you go 4 for 4, it's not about getting one. I mean, one of them, Reed Blankenship, the starting safety for the second year in a row. Yeah. The other, Tanner McKee, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The third, Moro Ojomo, popping, as we're talking about. And the fourth, Christian Ellis, getting reps with the ones for the Patriots.
With the Patriots.
They're going to have a better defense than the Eagles.
You think so?
I do.
Okay. So, yeah, Moro Ojomo, man, he is a presence in the middle of that line today. He penetrated. There was one splash play.
He blew up a run play.
Yeah, where he was just sitting in the backfield. But there were times when I was watching from behind the end zone, and he kept writing down 97. Right?
Yeah, he's had a really good last 5 practices or whatever. Yeah. No, he's looked awesome. And what is interesting from a macro perspective that I'm starting to think about is Ojomo has looked awesome. But we've also seen pops from Thomas Booker and PJ Mustapher has had a little bit of juice. The second and third team defensive tackles have all looked pretty good.
Maybe
the more we see that, is that a reflection of the interior offensive line depth not being so great? Maybe. But I think actually that the Ojomo play from today, the big one, was against the starters.
Sure.
So that was, I think he has looked very good.
Let me ask you this. Does Moro Ojomo factor into your Milton Williams long-term evaluation? Because, like we talked about, if you pay Milton Williams, you're going to pay Jalen Carter one day. We'll see about Jordan Davis. We don't quite know yet about Jordan Davis, but I imagine Jordan Davis is on the team year 4, potentially year 5, and we'll see about thereafter. Different types of players, but when they drafted Moro Ojomo, one thing we said is potential Milton Williams replacement in terms of the athletic profile, the way he plays. And so you wonder if he is good, do you let Williams walk at the end of the season and then Ojomo moves up the depth chart?
It's an interesting fallback. I don't think it should factor into whether they want to bring back Milton Williams or not, because if you just think about the timing of it,
sure.
If you're signing Milton Williams to an extension, most likely there's 2 years of real guarantees in there, and then year 3 is something you could potentially get out of, and those 2 years would be the last 2 years of Ojomo's rookie contract as a 6th-round pick, so it's not prohibitive in any way, and you probably want to keep those guys fresh. So I think it's fine, but it is also nice that if Ojomo pops, then maybe it's not as burdensome if you lose Milton Williams.
And this, by the way, is also why, in late rounds, we always talk about draft on upside, right? Use rookie free agency for the solid player who might be able to help now. If there's someone as young as Ojomo with those athletic traits, even if it's a position where you theoretically have a crowded depth chart, or there's not a path to playing time. Like, never think about plugging needs in the 6th round or 7th round. Like, think about, all right, who's a good upside swing? Because Ojomo, when they drafted him last year, you weren't like, wow, the Eagles need another defensive tackle. But now you're sitting here and you're saying this is a better situation than if they had drafted like a running back last year who didn't have upside or something like that.
Okay, so for my second team player, we haven't talked about the offensive line yet today, and
we can't go 32 minutes without talking about
Well, listen, Tyler Steen practiced today in team drills after being a limited participant yesterday, and it was Mekhi Becton with the 1s at right guard, Lane Johnson at right tackle, and with the 2s, it was Tyler Steen. Now, they did a little bit of a rotation today where they sort of brought on a new offensive line midway. It seemed like they're pitch counting some of those guys, and so it would be like Mailata would still be on the field and Juergens would still be on the field, although sometimes it was Toth. But then on would come Trevor Keegan and Tyler Steen and Fred Johnson. So, like, Tyler Steen was getting reps protecting Jalen Hurts, but he wasn't working next to Lane Johnson. I don't want to call it. We'll see how it goes over the next couple weeks, next couple practices. But I mean, it certainly looks to me like they're moving forward with Mekhi Becton as the current starting right guard.
Well, he was technically limited today, based on the information we got from the team. But no, look, it's fair. He's back at practice.
I mean, I actually think the individual drills tell this story even more. He's up with the 1s. Steen is with the 2s. Like, that's what's happening.
Yeah. It's a fair question. We speak to Nick Sirianni tomorrow at 9:40. I don't think Nick will. I'm sorry, 9:40. I don't think Nick will say specifically that one's ahead of the other. But this is why we're here. We always talk about the value of training camp is we see it all in front of us. Like, we've seen this happen, and we haven't seen them make a change. Yeah.
Well, and again, I don't think that Mekhi Becton has had a great summer necessarily. No. He's had flashes, but he's been up and down. Right now, he's their person.
And on Anthony's show, VG was asking me, like, do you think they're invested in seeing Tyler Steen work out because he's a draft pick? And I said, this is a little different situation than like if Matt Hennessy, and we'll get to Hennessy in a second, but if it was like him competing against Matt Hennessy, first off, I think they see a lot of upside in Mekhi Becton based on the age profile, based on like just how unique he is size-wise, former top 15 pick. And Tyler Steen, if Tyler Steen's outcome right now at this stage of his career is swing tackle, I think they're okay with that. I don't think they would view that as like this major miss right now. You kind of see the way things develop. But Isaac Seumalo, year 2, they wanted him to kind of be a starter. He wasn't a starter. They made that change during the season, but he was a valuable depth guy that year, and then he kind of grew into that. Tyler Steen, the Eagles drafted him hoping he could play guard, but he was a tackle in college, and the development curve might be different than like year 2. He's a starter. So I think Becton they view as a unique player. This is not from their perspective, I should say, Becton's not this like journeyman stopgap guy. I think he's someone they view as a potential long-term piece if he's good.
We should run through the actual injury report from today. Oren Burks continues to not practice with a knee injury. Paris Campbell out again with a groin injury. So C.J. Gardner-Johnson, this is the big one, shoulder injury. The word from the team is that they don't expect this to be super long-term, but I think it's something to monitor.
Now, because he's had shoulder injuries in the past.
Yeah, and this was the thing about C.J. Gardner-Johnson's press conference the other day, where he was being very boastfully like, "Oh,
I'm a winner.
You guys always tell me like I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or I can't do that," and that's fine. Like, you to some degree, you got to be wired that way. Like you know, whatever you need to do to get yourself better. But nobody is saying nobody doesn't think that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a good player. The question with C.J. Gardner-Johnson is, can he stay healthy? And like the next day he suffers a shoulder injury. Like, the guy misses time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're hard. Maybe it's bad luck. It's not structural.
Yeah, like the lacerated spleen. He had the one. Yeah.
Maybe it's because he plays a very physical style and he invites that contact. We've talked about that with Dallas Goedert. But like, you can't help the team and be like Mr. Winning personality if you can't stay on the field.
Yeah, and so we'll see the extent of this injury. He was at practice He was going through the mental reps.
Right, his shoulder was attached to his body.
Yeah. No, but I mean, but sometimes guys are inside, sure. Right? But no, it's a fair point. He needs to stay healthy. This was your commentary when they signed him, was the health component of it. Like, can he stay healthy here? And I think the Eagles know this too, because his deal was structured that it's not a long-term commitment, that there is an out after this year. I think more of the question / concern is if he's not out there, it's not a position where they have a lot of depth. Now, Sidney Brown eventually comes back, but Avonte Maddox was with the first team today.
Yes, that's what we were going to say. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, James Bradbury is someone who could mix in, but
they actually also they did a lot of rotating on defense today, like putting the first team defensive line with the second team secondary and stuff like that. So there was also a period where with the ones, it was Bradbury and Maddox. They were sort of rotating guys through.
Yeah, but as it's constructed at the moment, this is not this is the weakest spot from a depth perspective on the roster. Number one, maybe tight end.
Linebacker.
Okay, I mean, fair. But I was listening to the show on the way home yesterday, and I thought you made a good point that I did not think about, which is if Quinyon, if you're happy with Isaiah and Keeley at corner, and Quinyon is your slot, then maybe they do say to Cooper DeJean, let's learn safety now. It could be, you could be a long-term starter here, right? Because that was always viewed as like, if it doesn't work at corner, you can eventually move it there. But maybe from a necessity perspective, you can do that.
Yeah, I think safety is going to be very interesting. Just how it all shakes out. We'll see how long this C.J. Gardner-Johnson injury lasts. Do you believe that it's short-term, or do you think it's posturing? Is Justin Simmons a possibility all of a sudden?
Good question. I don't think it's long-term in the sense that, like, in October we'll be talking about this injury, but it could be the type of thing that knocks him out of the next 2-3 weeks of training camp, right? We might see him next in week 1. I wouldn't rule that part of it out, but I don't think it's. I think that if this was one of those things that's like 2 months, then I think they would softly put the word out there.
I think you're probably right. But just from a roster standpoint, I mean, you've got Reed Blankenship, you have now banged up C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You've got a couple guys with versatility, right? In Bradbury and Maddox, who could play there. You've got Sidney Jones, who might be ready for week 1. I think it's probably a little bit more likely he starts the season on PUP. And then you've got Cooper DeJean, who, when's he coming back, and where is he going to practice when he comes back? I think that's going to be very interesting.
You're absolutely right. We were talking about the offensive line, and you mentioned Brett Toth there as the second team center today. I was thinking about this when I saw it. Brett Toth is basically being what I thought Matt Hennessy was going to be, right? He's like the top backup at guard, top backup at center. And that's interesting to me because Hennessy is someone who has starting experience, good age profile.
Weird to me. Hennessy has, after the first 2 days of practice, has only played right guard. I think he's looked fine. Better than a lot of the other guys. I'm very confused about the Matt Hennessy thing. I don't have a good answer.
I don't know if it's a size thing. I mean, Toth is a big guy, right? Or I should say bigger. But no, that struck me that when I saw, Toth obviously was playing, first guard earlier this week, and now we see him as the top center. That jumped out to me.
And just to finish up the practice report injury-wise, Mekhi Garner and Brandon Smith both continue to be out. Austin Watkins limited with an illness, and Shaq Davis practiced for the first time this summer. Right?
I saw him yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
He's back.
And you mentioned Juergens. That Juergens, there was no one, he left practice yesterday.
And it was characterized as an illness.
Yes.
So, yeah. All right. Before we get to our ad read here, let's have a little super chat. Jalen Ald, Sicko Dio, Mad Day. Always a tongue twister. Just checks in from Montreal with a classic. Zach.
I would say Montreal. I love Montreal. And shout out to my grandmother, my uncle, my cousins, all there in Montreal. Love it.
What happened to Mr. Patriotism?
Well, I'm half Canadian, right? I mean, my mom's Canadian and my grandmother's my mom's an American citizen now, but my mom grew up in Canada, so I'd love Canada. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not mutually exclusive. I love my country, and I love my family's country as well.
Okay. You know what else you love?
Well, tell me. Am I reading this?
Sucking them back with the boys. Because a lot has changed over the years, Zach, but one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it's less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Well, Miller Lite sparked this debate all the way back in 1975, the year that Sean Stevens was born. We're going to get to him. Another big day for Sean Stevens, a down-the-roster cornerback. And guess what? We still haven't settled this debate. Great taste, less filling, great taste. Who knows? Doesn't matter. You get both with Miller Lite. Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most, a light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. Next Monday night, we got the softball playoffs big night. Rest assured, there's going to be some Miller Lights that are sucked back. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY-birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
I mentioned earlier that Jamie's wife was in studio. She went to high school in Fort Washington, where TrueMark Financial Credit Union is headquartered.
Wow, what were the odds we were going to get TrueMark today? That's fantastic.
I bring this up because what's great about TrueMark Financial is the TrueMark Financial Credit Union is it's a local company, and I like supporting local companies. What's also great about it is that if you're looking for a home equity line of credit, TrueMark is the place to turn. The HELOC allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate. Preserve your savings and get access to funds as needed for big renovations, education expenses, or emergencies. Use TrueMark Financial's budgeting tool to save for special purchases like limited edition merchandise. Regular contributions accumulate over time to reach savings goals effectively. Transferring as little as $5 a week gives you $260, more than enough for a Kelly Green jersey or just to accumulate compound interest. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY.
All right, let's work on to the third team. Zach, Who was your third team player of the day? Well, it doesn't have to be player of the day, just somebody you want to talk about.
Josh Jobe.
Interesting.
Josh Jobe had a real nice play along the left sideline where it was like, if I can call it a peanut punch. Joseph Ngata made the catch.
Yes, this was now credit where due. This was a very nice throw from Kenny Pickett.
Yeah,
back shoulder drove it deep. It was about like 20 yards down the field.
You are welcome back in Ocean Township. Okay, they are going to serve you that chicken vodka wrap at Gianni's.
I'm gonna bite that chicken vodka wrap just like I bite through Kenny Pickett's neck.
Josh Jobe, who's someone who I haven't written Josh Jobe's name down much this summer. When we talk about him in relation to the roster, we typically mention special teams. But think this time last year, we were talking about him as like the number 3 corner. Yeah. And this was a good play today. I actually wondered if Joseph Ngata would be upset that there was a little physicality involved there, right? It wasn't a contact period.
If Joseph Ngata can't out-physical Josh Jobe,
But he punched at the ball. It's not like he knocked him away. Yeah, so that I'll mention Josh Jobe for that one.
Yeah, Jobe is interesting because, they are so deep at cornerback. Is Josh Jobe that good at special teams that he's going to make this roster? I don't know. I don't think so. I would think right now not. But let's presume that Cooper DeJean is healthy enough to be on the Week 1 roster, right? Slay, Quinion Mitchell, Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, Cooper DeJean. That's 5 locks already. Is Eli Ricks ahead of Josh Jobe? He's probably a better corner, but Josh Jobe brings more on special teams. Can they get enough special teams value out of the other guys there? I think probably so. Then you add in Avonte Maddox and James Bradbury as well. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Josh Jobe. I don't think he will make this team based on his skills as a cornerback, as nice as that play was. I think if he makes the team, it's because they love what he does on special teams. I don't know if they think that highly of him.
Yeah, and this is why I'm leaning more and more toward Sidney Brown's starting season on PUP, even if there's an outside chance there. Now, just to kind of let everyone know what the rules are here, he can't practice Okay, if he returns to practice, he's no longer on PUP and he's ineligible to start the season on PUP, and he wouldn't be able to start the season on IR either because it's not an injury unless they recreate the injury, right? But the way Howie thinks about the roster is that look, it's dynamic over the course of the year. You're more likely to have a roster spot open in week 3, week 4 than you are week 1, right? So if you think that like someone like Sidney Brown, borderline week 1, maybe week 2 or week 3, it behooves you from a roster math perspective, considering the fact that he's not a starter, to start him on PUP. Like, don't bring him back to practice. Give him a little extra time to return. You designate the window, after week 2, week 3. You know, you start that with that window, and then week 4, you activate him. After week 4, you activate him. I think that would be the way to go, just because if there are guys like Josh Jobe where you say, all right, we're still not totally there yet with some of these young guys from a special teams perspective. We want him around. We don't know what the roster is going to look like in 3 weeks. It's also easier to waive somebody in week 3 and get them to practice squad than week 1 when teams are still kind of putting their roster together. That's one thing that I've heard teams say in the past.
Interesting. I don't know if I believe that.
You don't believe that?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think that's actually, I would think it would be the opposite.
No,
because I think if you release a guy when all of the league is releasing guys, there's a better chance of you getting this guy through. Whereas if you carry it, this is the order of operations thing I complained about with Casey Toohill. Once you signal to the league that you thought this guy was worth a roster spot in the beginning, then when you release him, then all of a sudden there are fewer people to be claimed. I think it's the guy's more likely to be claimed.
As it's been explained to me, it maybe this is wrong. I understand your logic there is that the way some GMs think is that, all right, that 48-hour period after
people are more likely to be looking for people.
You're shuffling around. Come like week 3 of the season, week 5, it's like this is your team unless you're like filling a specific need. You're not just claiming a guy for developmental reasons.
Yeah, I feel like this has burned the Eagles specifically several times. Toohill, Christian Ellis last year.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, maybe I was misinformed.
Well, I don't know. I also don't know if Jobe is the kind of guy.
Sure.
Like the other angle here is that because of all the practice squad elevations, you don't have to worry so much about losing a guy like that.
And he's an older player. He was 24 when they had him. He's 26 now. So when they had him, when they signed him, he wasn't born to the team.
Yeah.
So.
13 player. I'll give Sean Stevens the shout out again after a big day yesterday.
Shout out to that mysterious guy who said go right about
Jeffrey Lurie was right. Last play of the competitive period today, I believe it was Tanner McKee trying to throw a ball in on third down near the goal line, and Sean Stevens gets an arm in, breaks up the pass, and then Andre Sam hauls in the interception. So Sean Stevens continues to be just popping a little bit. Good for him.
And I liked Andre Sam on that play. Had a little swag.
Is it Andre Sam or is it Sam Andre?
All right. I actually have a little take here about this.
Oh, wow. A take.
All right.
This is the second day in a row when you have something you've been wanting to get off your chest about a long-running bit.
Yeah. So I make a joke yesterday. I thought it was funny. You didn't. Okay. Which is the Jason Kelce. So that's who it was. And you completely no-sell it. Okay. And
I'm not asking you to sell.
And then your
Andre
point
Sam,
is,
Sam
well,
Andre.
like, and you're like, my jokes are funny, or you said something like that.
Oh no, I would never say that all of my jokes are funny.
I'm saying this bit about how many times I tolerated. Is it Sam Andre or Andre Sam?
Yeah, usually you just tell me what it is. That's the back and forth.
Right.
It's a nice little repartee.
It is Andre Sam.
A little through line for the sickos.
And what's the Ajoya might know this more than me, and I think you and Joya would know this. I don't know French as well here.
Why?
J'adore le français. What's the apostrophe after the E? Is there a specific?
The French ones are for the apostrophes that are on top of it. You've got the accent aigu and the accent grave.
Yeah, okay. So
but this is just an apostrophe. I think.
This is just an apostrophe. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that I know. I know just the apostrophe. So yeah, he has. It's not Andre without the it's Andre apostrophe.
Right.
Important to know.
What do you think that's replacing?
What do I think it's replacing?
That apostrophe.
It's replacing something. It's.
I mean, that's what apostrophes do, right?
No, yeah. I don't know. Unless it's supposed to be over the E to emphasize the.
Well, I don't think they've been getting it wrong all this time.
There's been guys who've I forget the player who they were saying his name wrong the whole time. Demetrius Bell, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think it's replacing?
A W.
Oh, Andrew. You want to be Andre? Andre's got a little more. It's a little more panache to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Andre Sam. And by the way, did you notice who was in Andre Sam's face celebrating after that interception?
C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
Anthony Harris, former Eagle safety, who's now helping with the coaching staff this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been interesting.
Good chatting with him. I saw him the other day.
Got that UVA connection?
Well, no, he pulled out the how's the family. And I'm like, that's my line. I'm the how's the family guy, okay?
You have ownership over how's the family?
No, I always say, how's the family? How's the family? And so, yeah, he saw me, said, how's the family? Doing great on Anthony.
I mean,
how's
yeah, that's as safe a question as you could possibly ask.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's why I ask it.
Yeah.
Wait, so according to his Twitter, it's an apostrophe over the E.
Ah, okay. So the Eagles have it incorrect. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Right?
What a find from Julia.
Julia, that's a good work, Julia.
Now, that's an agu?
Agu.
Right?
Yeah. Because I remember you say grav, like grave towards the ground. So agu.
There we
So
go.
it's not Andrew. It is. Yeah, it is an agu.
It's Andre.
Okay. Well, Andre Sam, you can watch him in the preseason game this week.
There you go. Okay. Last thing is the play worth mentioning. Oh, also the press conference nugget. Give me your. I'll give you my play worth mentioning.
My play worth mentioning was the Andre Sam one. So
okay. So my play worth mentioning is we have the identity now of the Eagles' emergency snapper, emergency kicker, emergency holder. A couple of these are holdovers, but they did this at the end of the field goal period in opening warmups. You have Grant Calcaterra snapping to Britton Covey, holding for Braden Mann. And on the first of these plays, Britton Covey dropped the snap, rolled right. It's a fire drill. Brett Toth breaks free to the end zone. Britton Covey lofts a pass up to Brett Toth, who bobbles it and then hauls it in as he gets both feet in bounds for a touchdown. Now there's no defense, obviously. And then on the second one, high snap, but Covey gets it down and Braden Mann knocks it through. So there you go.
I was on Anthony's show when that happened. Do you mind if I use that in the practice notes?
No, not at all.
Okay, I'm going to pull that from the show. I'll credit you because it's important to credit. And then I will, that's a good nugget there.
There you go.
You know what? I love going on Anthony's show, but I knew I was missing something in those first 22 minutes.
You just knew it.
Okay.
All right, what's your press conference nug?
So two things here. First off, Jeremiah Washburn. I asked Jeremiah Washburn, who has been with the team for a while now, but he's now working under his fourth defensive coordinator, okay? And
Jeremiah was a line coach.
So if you think like going from Jim Schwartz's defense, okay, the Jonathan Gannons, the Sean Desai's, now Vic Fangio's, that's a lot of staying power. He survived a few staffs here. He's the only defensive coach who's a holdover for that long, right? And so
he's probably the answer to the thing that we were wondering about earlier, isn't he?
Which one? What we debate a lot
about the shore vacation.
Okay,
probably right.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. It's a good point. So Jeremiah Washburn, I asked him about surviving these four coaches, how he's done it, and he gave a good answer. He said actually the key there is like to know the people you're hiring, and he's
who are hiring.
Yeah,
right.
No. Who they hired, not the people hiring. He said he's worked with Vic Fangio in the past. Yeah. So he said it was actually really cool. He said he was an O-line coach in Chicago when Vic Fangio was a D coordinator. Mm. He's worked with Fangio in two different places in the past. And so that background helped him out. He loves working with Vic.
What an interesting career Jeremiah Washburn
has
had.
Exactly.
Huh? Now, you don't know a lot of people who have had as many different jobs as he has had.
Yeah, actually, to that point, he's a former scout. Because I asked him, as someone with a scouting background, and when I asked this question, I got to give myself a pat on the back. I know what region he used to scout in, okay? Wow. Okay, I know what region he used to scout in. I said, when does Houston Baptist or Houston Christian get across your radar? And he's like, well, it's a good question because, I used to scout that area. Yeah, right. And I'm like, come on. You don't think I have a Google alert for you, man? And then, so yeah, he said that they've had a lot of success with like mid-level small school players at that position. But he said that his wife could have been at the Senior Bowl and like seen that there was something there in Jalyx Hunt. Jeremiah Washburn also said that from a pass rush perspective, they need to view it like the sum of the parts is greater than that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? And that,
yeah, I think that's right,
because it can't just be you're replacing Hassan Reddick with Bryce Huff. It can't just be Josh Sweat's going to look like he did in 2022. Although he said Josh Sweat played better last year than the numbers indicate. We can debate that. It can't just be Nolan Smith's going to break out. It needs to be. He said it reminds him of 2020, which might not be the best comparison because their defense wasn't very. He said, but their big message then was like, it's about the group here. It's about the group, and that's what he was really emphasizing with the pass rush.
Interesting. And yeah, I do think Jalyx Hunt, by the way, I agree with what Vic Fangio said the other day, that like he popped early, but since the pads have come on, it has been a little bit less so, and maybe that transition's taken a little bit longer. He has been a little bit more quiet over the past week.
And then, as we both briefly mentioned, I asked Tanner McKee about his background in Brazil. Like the Brazil game is very meaningful to him. He spent 2 years there on his mission, like you mentioned. Only a month or two in Sao Paulo, but he's got he knows a lot of people in the area. Really advocated for the food. He talked about if you've been to a Brazilian steakhouse in the States, how they have the meat on the stick.
Yep. And
he said you can get that all over, like real fresh beef that's from there. That's at a good price. He's done a lot of Portuguese interviews. He mentioned that like the wearing green thing is like it's a real thing, and he doesn't understand why it's a big deal. Of course, you can't go into that.
I think it's not going to be a real thing for this
game here. Yeah.
It's
but
a real thing if you were
down there now. Yeah,
right. But the people there understand that this is a football, this is an NFL game, and this is not a Palmeiras game.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I think.
But he said that, he said, and then a few of his teammates caught wind before the Chiefs game last year. I guess he did an interview in Portuguese that he spent time in Brazil, and he said A.J. Brown's Portuguese made him laugh. So
there you go. You should ask him to say Gabe Hall in Portuguese.
Gabe Hall.
Nice.
Yes.
All right. Good stuff today, Zach. Nice and tidy. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Yes. So we still don't have firm word one way or the other on how the guys are going to play, how the preseason's managed. Nick Sirianni, like I said, speaks at 9:40 tomorrow. I would not have your hopes up on him announcing a rotation. He has not typically done that in the past. We will see. Tomorrow is there. It's 4 consecutive days of practices. I'm imagining a little later session tomorrow. So we can see there. We'll monitor C.J. Gardner-Johnson's injury. I really think that's the big one. Oh, and the other thing too, John Ross came off the field early today too. So we'll see if there's anything to that.
And is it John Ross or is it Ross?
It is John Ross. Yes.
Thank you very much. All right.
He has children. He has a son back home. Let's make sure. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Back tomorrow, same time, 2:00, to talk about the last of 4 straight practices for the Eagles. Then on Thursday, I guess we're going to do it. Open up the curtain and unveil the identity of this year's Bo Wulf Camp Crush before pregame show and postgame show on Friday night when the Eagles open up the preseason. Make sure you're hitting the like button and subscribing, all that good stuff. For all of us here at PHLY, Julia working it out in the back and discovering the truth about the Andre Sam accent agu. We thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.